Hey, welcome. This is Lee Waller, and I am working in Unreal Engine 5.6 in the motion design tools. I'm going to take a look at the materials, the material designer in Unreal Engine, and how to create metallic materials, in particular, taking advantage of the material option of Anisotropy. What is Anisotropy? A great example of this is a CD, DVD, Blu-ray, when you're holding it in your hand and the light's reflecting off of it and you see all of the different colors and the angles in particular at which that light is being reflected. So Material Designer has the option to add Anisotropy into a surface, and I'm going to take a look at that while I create this motion design. I'm going to walk through the process of setting up Unreal Engine for the motion design tools. This has changed a few times, so I'm going to take a look at how I'm going through that process now. I'm going to click on the Film, Video, and Live Events, use a blank template there, and label this. That will restart the engine, and once we're back up, unfortunately, we're going to have to restart it one more time after we initialize the Motion Design plugin. Once we're back in the engine, I'm going to go up here to Edit and drop down to Plugins, and we'll look for Motion Design. We'll initialize that right there. I'm going to hit yes and restart. Back in the engine, you'll now see this option right here for motion design. Let's click on that. You can see that that sets up the UI for the motion design tools. Have over here all of the tools, and we're in the motion design mode. In our scene, I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to go here to the persistent level and open that up. I'm going to select everything underneath that and delete it. And then we'll add in these defaults, create defaults right there. Click on that and hit spawn. You'll see that it has added the default scene right there, and it gives us a directional light and a skylight for our lighting, and then the post-process volume and a camera. I'm going to turn snapping off up here on position, rotation, and scale. And I'm going to hide this down here. I just haven't gotten used to using that. So I'm going to start out with our first shape. To create that, I'm just going to use a 2D rectangle up here in the 2D shapes. I'm going to double click on the rectangle. Let me do a couple of other things real quick. I'm going to go ahead and open up the operator stack. Click that button right there, and the operator stack is available to us here. And in the motion design outliner, let me bring the details up so we can see those. And I have that rectangle selected. We're going to make some adjustments to it and add some modifiers to it in just a moment. In the details, I'm going to drop down here, and on the mesh size, I'm going to set that to free so we can change both of these separately. I'm going to set this first number to 460 on the X value, and on the Y value right there, I'm going to set that to 116. Let's go back up to the left slant and the right slant. It'll slant these edges right here. And I'm going to set the left slant to a -15 and the right slant to 15. And now we'll add some modifiers to this. I'm going to jump out of the camera just to take a look at it, because right now it's just a flat 2D shape. Let me back up and you'll see, let me slide over here to the side. It's just a flat 2D shape. So I want to add a little bit of depth to this. With the modifiers, I'm going to go into the operator stack. Make sure your rectangle is selected. Go into the operator stack, hit add modifiers. The first thing I want to do is extrude this. It extrudes it to 30 centimeters. That's a little too much for this design. So I'm just going to, and I'll select that and drop this down to 6. We'll go ahead now and create our first material. And this will introduce us to the Anisotropy property. So with the rectangle selected, I'm going to go ahead and label that real quick. I'm just going to label that background. With it selected, we'll drop down here to the material. On the material type, we'll move from simple to material designer. And there's our material designer, new material. I'm going to go with PBR and hit continue. Open this up just a little bit so we can see this better. And in our channels, let's go ahead and go there. And you'll see down here, we can scroll down to the bottom, and you'll see that we have Anisotropy that we can add in. We're also going to need to add in tangent, because those two will work together. So we're going to need to click these one at a time. And you'll see Anisotropy there, and now we can add in tangent. You also have them up here in the channels right up here. I'm going to make some other adjustments first. We'll go ahead and add in our color for this. Go to the base color. And I'm going to select right here and change that to solid color and jump in there. And I'm just going to make this a blue color. Maybe a little bit darker, somewhere in there. And we'll go with that one. And now I'm going to make some changes to the roughness and metallic because this is where we will get the metal look. So on roughness, I'm going to change this also to a solid color. And I'll change that to white. And then do the same thing to metallic. Now let's go to Anisotropy. And I'm just going to change that to white. And then tangent. Let's go in here and we're actually going to add an effect to this. So right here, let's select the FX button and we're going to drop down to generators and I'm going to go to this 4-color gradient. So that we can see this starting to work, I'm going to jump into our channels and make an adjustment to our roughness. Let's select the roughness right there and we'll set that to 0.1 for right now. And you'll see now how this tangent is beginning to affect the reflections. And after we've done that, let's slide down and we'll take a look at the tangent. And I'm just going to set that to 0. And you'll see how we're not getting that reflection quite the way we are when this tangent is active. I'll set that back to 1. And so that's working with the anisotropy, and these colors here are creating the curved effect. I'm going to go back into the tangent now, and I'll select that 4-color gradient, and I'm actually going to make these red, green, blue, and yellow. We'll do that real quick. Just click on them. And for red, I'll set the green and the blue down to 0 and hit OK. On this green, we don't have much to adjust. We'll just bring it up to full green right there and hit OK. And then blue, we'll adjust our channels. And then for yellow, we'll bring blue all the way down and bring green all the way up. And there's our yellow, and we'll hit OK. So you can work with these 4 colors to adjust that curve, that effect that the anisotropy and the tangent is having on the material. So now that I have this material set up, we're going to save it. Click right here and save as new material. In my contents right here, I'm going to right click and add a new folder. And we'll just call this materials. Double click. And then we'll label this blue metal. And then I'm just going to add an AN on there for anisotropy. And we'll hit save. And we can close that out, and there is our material now. And so you can see there, we're getting this curved reflection from the lighting in the scene. And to show you that, I'll go up here and turn off the directional light, and that's what's creating this reflection. While we're looking at the lighting, I do want to change the HDR that is being reflected there. And so I'm going to go into the skylight right there and go back up to the top, and you'll see the cube map right there. I'm just going to open up the options for that, and I'm going to drop down to this T cube map. I just like that one for some reason. So I'm going to add that in, and we get some interesting lighting from that. You can sort through those and see if there's one that you prefer. I'm going to continue building out our background here. I'm going to work now on the number in the center and the circle and ring that goes with it. For the main circle for that, I'm going to use a 3D cylinder. So I'll go over here to the 3D shapes and double click and drop in that cylinder. On rotation right here on the pitch, I'm going to set that to 90 degrees. I'm going to bring our sides up to 128. That just smooths out the roundness of this object. On our mesh size right here, I'm going to set this to free. I'll leave the X and Y at 100, and then I'm going to set the Z down to 4. And I'm going to go to the side here and just see where we are. And that is intersecting a little bit with the back wall, and that's fine right now. I'll just leave that. We may adjust it a little bit later. I'll go ahead and make the material for this. Again, this one's going to have Anisotropy in it. So I'm going to go here to Material Type, click on Simple Material Designer, and I'm going to hit Continue. And just like we did before, I'll kind of move through this quick. I'm going to go down to the channels, and I'm going to enable the Anisotropy and the tangent. On the base color, I'm going to change that to a solid color and just make that white. And like before on the roughness and metallic, I'm going to change these to a solid color and make both of them white. I'm going to set the Anisotropy also to white. And then on the tangent, just like before, I'll add in that effect. Generators, 4-color gradient, and make that red, green, blue, and yellow. So now to bring in our metallic look and our Anisotropy, I'm going to jump into the channels, and this mostly hinges on the roughness at this point. I'm going to set that now to 0.1. So there's our material. We'll save this out. And we can close that up. On this, I have a gold ring in it, so I'm going to create that with a 2D shape. So in the 2D shapes right there, click on ring, and I'll just draw that in real quick. And let me jump up here to the location and rotation for that. I'll reset both of those and then reset the mesh size right there. On the mesh size, I'm going to bring that up to 92 on both of these. Like we did on the sides earlier, I'll bring that up to 128. On the inner size right here, let's bring that up to 0.95. Let's see if that works. Yes, that looks good. And now we can add a modifier to this to extrude it. So I'll go up to Operator Stack, Add Modifiers, and Extrude. I'm going to bring that down to about 6 centimeters also. It is hidden back behind this circle here, so we're going to need to bring that out. So on our X value, let's just start scrubbing that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll take a look at maybe -4. Slide around here to the side and just see where that is. So that looks good there. And I want to create the material for this one, just like we've done before. This time we'll make it a little bit quicker. And what I'm going to do is go into the content drawer, go to materials, and I'll go to this silver material. I'm going to click on it, drag off to the side, let go, and I'm going to copy right here. We'll let it create that material, and then I'm going to right click on it, go to rename, and we'll just name this gold metal. I'll double click on it, open it up, and this will be pretty simple. We can go right here into our base color, select the color, and drop down there and just create whatever gold color you want, and then hit OK. Close that, and I'm going to go back to the content drawer and make sure that I save that. Save both of those materials, and we can apply this now. I'm going to make sure that it is selected. We'll close the content drawer, head over here to the ring, and on the material type, we'll go from simple to asset, and then we can click this button right here, and it will select that gold material. And so now we've applied that material to that object. Anytime is a good time to save, so I'm going to hit Control-Shift-S to save everything. Now I'll work on creating that number for the center of this. We'll need to go to Actors over here in our Motion Design tools. Click on Actors. We'll click on the text actor and drag that in. Just drop it right there. Let me go to the outliner, make sure we have that selected. I'm going to go ahead and label that. Probably now would be a good time to label all of this. Back to my text there, I'm going to reset everything here on my location and rotation right there. I'm going to drop down to horizontal alignment and vertical and center both of those. Head back up and we'll go ahead and just put that number in, number 5. You can change the font. I'm going to leave it on Roboto. I think I will go from regular to bold right there. And I'm going to adjust the scale on this. Let me lock that, and then we'll bring that up to 1.5. I'm going to go ahead and bring that out just a little bit on our X location right there. And in our properties, we can continue building this out. Down here under geometry, I'm going to extrude this a little bit, probably set that to 6. And on the bevel there, I'm going to set that to 1. I'm going to change that type from convex to linear. So on all of my text, I want this to be as legible as possible. So on the material, I'm not going to initiate the anisotropy on this one. I will go in here and I'm going to customize this. And with that number selected, let me go up here to Material Designer and hit that. And we'll create that front material right there. I'm going to go with a PBR, hit continue. In my base color right here, I'll change that to a solid color. And then change that to a little bit closer to a burnt yellow, almost orange over in that area. And hit OK. And then adjust my roughness and metallic. And then in my channels here, we'll go down to adjust the roughness to set this metallic value to 0.5. I'm going to save this. And I'm just going to label this yellow. Close that out, and we've added that in. And you can experiment with the materials that you use on the rest of this. And on the bevel material right here, I'm going to set that up for gold. So I'll just go up here and search for MD_gold and add that in. And it's not real visible, but on the extrude right there, I'll add in that blue metal that we've created. So now I'll go ahead and add in our 2 bars that we have there. Those aren't difficult. We've already created the materials for it. So to add those in, I'm going to use a 2D shape on that. I'll use the rectangle. I'm going to select rectangle, then just draw that out real quick. And over here in my details, I'll reset the location and the rotation, and we'll make some adjustments to this. Let's go down to the mesh size and set that to free. And on the length right there, 440. And then on the height, we'll set that to 4. And it's just not happy with where it's sitting, so we'll bring that out just slightly. That's why it's flashing like that on the render. Bring it out just a little bit. I am going to add an extrusion to this, so we'll go into the operator stack and add that modifier in, extrude. And I'll just drop that again down to 6 on the depth there. I'm going to slide over here, and we're not in place quite yet, but I do want to slant these just like the background is slanted. So again, on the left slant, I'll set that to -15, and on the right slant, set that to 15, so that'll match up. Then I'm going to bring this up. I believe we'll set this on the Z-axis to 30, and that should have it in place. All right, that's looking good. And maybe bring it out just a little bit more, maybe -4. Let's see if that works. And we'll add that material in. Go down here to material type, select simple, and go to asset, and then we can search for that. MD_. And I'm going to go with that gold. Let me zoom out here. Take a little bit closer look here. It looks like it's out in front of everything, so sorry, let me move around here and get in view. I'm going to leave that right there, and I'm going to actually bring everything else out forward. So I'm just going to select these objects. And we'll see if we can work with that. See how that looks. That should work. All right, I like that a lot better. I just want some depth on this, so when we move around it, we kind of see that a little bit. We have this, so we'll just duplicate it and make a few adjustments to it. Select it and Control D. And we can drop that down. We'll select the Z axis right there and set that down to -30. We do need to adjust the length of it because down here lower is going to be hanging over right there. So on the width, we'll drop that down to 408, and that should have us in place. All right, this is looking good. I want to add in the name. This is just a fictitious name I came up with, but we're going to need a text actor. So over here in Actors, Text Actor, click on that, bring it in, and make sure that's selected. I'm going to reset its location and rotation just like before. I'm going to check my horizontal alignment and vertical alignment there on center. I am going to change this font here to change that to Century Gothic, and I'll go from regular to bold on that. Type in this first name, Argo, all caps right there. Go down to the geometry and extrude this. Set a little bit of a bevel in there. I think I'm going to set that one to 0.5, and I do want that to be linear. We'll bring that out just a little bit, maybe -4. I'm going to slide that over, and you can see it's a little too big, so I'm going to bring down the scale on this to 0.6. Make that fit just a little bit better, and just position it real quick. I'm going to go in and create the material for the front of this one. I am going to create this one a little bit differently. Let me make sure that it's selected, and I'll just click on Material Designer right here and create front material. Again, PBR, continue. On this material, I'm going to use the emissive property for this. I'm going to set this to a color and then set that value in just a minute. The reason is I want it to kind of overcome the lighting in the scene. I don't want it to necessarily be affected by the lighting, but I still also want to be able to add in a little roughness and metallic to it. We'll change this to white. Hit OK, and again, go in here like I've been doing and change these out. This just gives me a little more control over the roughness and metallic in the channels settings. That's why I continue to do this. So now that I've got that set, I'm going to go into the channels, and on the emissive, I'm going to bring this down just a little bit to 0.5. On the roughness, I'm going to set that to 0.1. And on the metallic, I'm going to set that to 0.5. And let's go in here and change our base color, obviously. We'll set that also to solid white. Now that I've got that created, I'll save this material. And I'm going to label this white emissive. We can close that out, and that is set to the front of our text. Like I did for the number 5, I'm going to go here and let me go ahead and select that material. I'm going to go with this gold material right here on the bevel. For some reason, I was having a little problem getting to the materials. They were grayed out, so I've just selected another object, then went back to the text. And so now we'll add that to the bevel right there. And like I did with the number 5, I'll add that blue in to the extrude of that. And so now we have that text with its materials added to it. And we can jump over here. Let me just deselect and take a look at that. I'm going to take a look at that extrude. Maybe we can make that a little bit bigger. So I'll select that material and go to the extrude down here. And we'll try that at 1 and see if that'll work. Yeah, that looks better. I'm going to rename that. And what we can do to make this pretty simple is just duplicate that, and we'll slide that over. We'll go ahead and label this the last name of our driver. and go into the details for that and change it there also. Then we can slide that over into place. Zoom out and take a look at that to get that lined up. Somewhere in there works good. So now we have our name card built out, complete with materials. We have a few things left on this. The floor, I'll create it real quick. I'm going to go here to the 2D shapes and we'll just use an ellipse on this. So I've just double clicked, added that ellipse in. I'm going to bring up the sides to 128. I'm going to rotate this a negative 90 degrees right there. On the mesh size, we'll set that to X and Y, and we can bring that up to 700. And then we'll drop that down just underneath the name card right there. So let's see where that's about a negative 60. And we'll add a material to it. Drop down here to the material type, move from simple to material designer. I'm going to hit continue. I'm going to set up my roughness and metallic real quick on this, then we'll get back to the checkered floor. In our base color right there, I'm going to leave that on a texture and we'll search for the texture we need. Let's go for T_grid and that should bring it up. It's this grid checker A. I'm going to work with it. Now it's black and green. We can change that very easily by going right here to the channel mask and checking on the green right there. I'll slide this over and you can see the checkered floor. They're very large. So I'm going to increase the tiling of this. So right here on tiling, I'm going to bring that up to 25. And that gives us more of that checkered flag look. Then in our channels right here, I'll make a few adjustments on the roughness and metallic to kind of get the look that I want. You can play around with this and set these to whatever you want to. These are the properties I chose. A 0.3 on the roughness, and then a 0.8 on the metallic. Let me save this one. And I'm going to go with checkered floor. And hit save, and we'll close this out so we can get a good look at it. So we got a little bit of a metallic look in that, but not real strong, so it distracts from the rest of it. I'm going to put a ring around this, so I'm going to use the 2D shape ring. Select that and draw one in real quick, and we'll make some adjustments to it on the location and rotation. I'm going to reset both of those. I'll reset my mesh size. Then on the mesh size, I'm going to set both of those to 700. And then we'll need to rotate this negative 90 degrees. And let's go ahead and add in an operator, a modifier right there. We'll go to the operator stack, add in the modifiers. I want to extrude this. And then again, I don't need it quite that deep, so I'll just set that maybe to 6 again. And put that in position. We should be able to go to, I think, negative 60 on the location right here for Z, minus 60. Let's see how that looks. We'll make a few more adjustments. I'm going to bring the sides up to 128 to smooth out that roundness. And then on the inner size right here, let's try 0.98, see how that looks. That's looking pretty good. And on this one, I'm going to add in the silver metal. So I'm going to select the content drawer right there, select that material, go back to our ring there and set that to asset. And then we can click right here to select that material. And now we've added that in. I'm going to save everything, Control-Shift-S. I have some old footage playing in this animation, and I grabbed that from archive.org. Just went in there and did a search for 1950 Grand Prix racing. Went through a few of these videos till I found some footage that I liked and just downloaded it. took it into my editor, edited a few clips together, and exported that out as an H.264.mp4, and that will work well in Unreal Engine. To import that footage in, I'm going to go down here to the content drawer, open it up, select contents, and add a new folder in. Label this videos, open that up, and right in there, we'll right click and go up to import and navigate to it. And there's the footage I want. Bring that in. I'm going to select it and just hit Control S to save that. We can open it, double click on it. And once it's open, we can hit the open button right here, and that will actually load the footage and we can take a look at it. We know that's the footage, so I'm going to close that out. And this is real easy to get into our scene. Just grab that, drag it in, and drop it. I'm going to reset the location, and then I'm going to rotate this. Should be a -90 degrees. It's a little small compared to the rest of the animation, so I'm going to set that scale to 3 right there and drag that back just a little bit. We can finish up the placement of this in just a minute. Let me drop it down, bring it right above the floor. Now to see that, let me go up here to the Motion Design Outliner. There it is. I'm going to go ahead and bring that down into the sequencer. Say yes right here. And I'm going to make some adjustments to this. I'm going to go ahead and match that up to 30 frames per second. And so now our footage is in there. I'll increase the length of our sequence real quick. Click on our playback options right there and set the end to, we'll give this 10 seconds, 300. And that adjusts our sequence down here so we can actually watch about 10 seconds of this. You can see that plays back really well. So I'm just going to select it and kind of check my settings here. I'll set that to -59 and maybe set that to 120 just to kind of round those out so I know where they are. And the last thing I want to do on this is just create a border for it. For that border, I'm going to use a rectangle. Click on that rectangle and then just draw that in real quick, and then we'll reset everything, kind of get that in place. Let's rotate that to -90 degrees on the pitch right there. We'll bring it out, and on our mesh size, I'm going to reset that, and it's on X and Y. So the numbers I actually need for this, let me set this to free. And because of the aspect ratio of this, I'm going to set this mesh size to 300 by 198. And I'll drop that down. And actually we can set the same position right there. I'll set that to -59 and set that to -120. And that should have us lined up. I'm going to add some modifiers to this, go to the operator stack, and we want this to be the outline of that. So we'll use the outline modifier. We can bring that in a little bit, maybe to 5, whatever your preference is on that. And I'm going to extrude it just a little bit to give it some depth. Hit that extrude again, and let me drop down to the depth right there and set that to 6. I want to check where that's sitting, so I'm going to drop down here and just take a look real quick and see how that's... So we can bring that up just a little bit to get that above the floor. So I'll set that about to -55 on that, and all of that, of course, can be adjusted. I'm going to add in that silver metal to the material. Drop down here to the materials. Go from simple to asset, and then select and search for that MD_silver. Add that in. And we've got this looking pretty good. I'm going to make a few adjustments to the lighting in here. Go into the Motion Design Outliner. I'm going to go to the directional light first and take a look at that. On the intensity right there, I'm going to bring that up to 5. And so I'm going to drop back down in here and just kind of take a look at this. That's looking really good. Now I'm going to go in and start setting up the animation for this, which is only 2 cameras. We already have one camera in there, so I'm going to use it. That is our first camera right there. And I want to start viewing this from that camera. So right up here, I'm going to go to perspective and select it, and then also click this button right here. That way we know we're looking through that camera. We'll need to add that camera to the sequencer. So let's grab that camera, and first let's unlock it so we can move it around. And then we'll drag that down into the sequencer. It's going to drop that camera in there. Then it's also going to add in a camera cuts track. We're going to use that camera cuts track in just a minute because we're going to have two cameras in there. That'll allow us to start off with this camera, and then at the time in the sequence we want to, we can cut to the other camera for that animation. I'm going to set my timeline indicator to the beginning of the sequence right there. Before we start animating this camera, I want to make a change to it. Make sure that that camera is selected, and I'm going to drop down here into the details panel. I want to change the lens right here. I want to go from this universal zoom to a 30mm prime. That's going to change up our field of view just a little bit, but now that we've got that, we can start placing this camera where we want it for our first shot. And so I'm going to start somewhere about right there, maybe a little bit closer. Kind of make this a tight shot on the name card. And I want to check the focus on it also. So over here back in the settings, we'll go to focus settings. I'm going to open that up, and I'm going to enable this focus plane right here. You'll see it's that purple color. I'm going to start dragging this number closer to us, and that just lets us know what's in focus and what's not in focus. I'm going to go right there, and then I'll turn that off. So this should be well in focus. Now I can animate this. I want to start right here. So on that camera with it selected, I'll go to the location properties for it. I'm going to set its first keyframe, make sure that my timeline indicator is right there at the beginning of the sequence, and click that first keyframe. It adds in that first keyframe. And we can drop down and we'll look into the transform properties and location right there. And then I'll slide over to, I want this to be about a 4-second animation. So right there at 120. And I'm just going to use the Y axis right there, and I'll just slide the camera over. Pretty easy movement to stop somewhere right in there. And then we can set that second keyframe. It has set keyframes on all three of the properties, but we're just using that one. I want this velocity of this move to be constant, so I'll just select all of the keyframes, right-click, and go to linear. I'm going to go back to the beginning of the timeline, and we'll play this out now and take a look at it. And so right about there, we'll cut to our second camera. I'm going to set that at 119 just to give us a little frame of buffer room right there. And we're going to add in now our second camera. Let me close all of this up. For this second camera, we're going to use two objects. We'll use the camera, and then we're also going to use a camera rig rail for that movement. To add those in, let's start up here at the green plus button, click on it, go down to Cinematic, and we'll go add in that camera first, Cine Camera Actor. I'll drag that over into the sequencer and drop it. And for us to see that camera, I'm going to go ahead and go into our camera cuts track and add that in. Like I said, this is going to cut to the second camera right here. So we'll click on the plus button and select that second camera. Just so we can see the scene a little bit, I'm just going to back up, and there is our scene. Let me go and select that camera. And I'm just going to start adjusting these numbers a little bit. I'll zero that out and zero out my rotation. And we're going to go with a high angle on this. So I'll just bring that up. What I want to do now is I want to get that close to where I think I might need it. And I'm going to add in the camera rig rail. So let's go up here and to our green plus button again, drop back down to Cinematic, and let's add in that camera rig rail. We're going to need to jump out of that camera now. So I'm going to deselect that. We're outside of any of the cameras. We're just looking at the default camera here, and we can look at our whole scene and see everything in it. So there's our camera rig rail, and let's find that second camera. There it is right there. So we're going to bring the camera rig rail closer to the camera. So I'm going to select it and back it up and get it close. I'm going to go ahead, let me see. Yeah, I'll just set that to -800, somewhere around there, and set that to 300 just so I know where this is. And I need to attach the camera now to the rig rail. That's very simple. Just grab the camera and make it a child of the rig. Drop it right there. Now the position of the rig will affect the position of the camera. Now that we've done that, let's reset the position of the camera because it's jumped way out of the way. And it, like I said, it's going to be controlled by the rail now. I'm going to try to get into position where I can see this. And the nice thing about it is we will see the view of that camera right here. So we kind of have two views here that we can work with. I'm going to rotate this rail because right now our direction is going forward and I want it to truck right. So we're going to rotate that rig. With it selected, we'll go down here and rotate it on the Z value. And we can just set that to 90 degrees. That will get us started. And let's see, I'm going to slide this over probably about -300. And the camera is in position. I'm going to make a few adjustments to it. We will need to make sure that the camera now is selected. I'm going to bring it up just slightly above the rig and then rotate it down just a little bit, and then we'll rotate it towards the scene until we start seeing the scene right there. So now we can use the camera controls to set up the shot. So I'm just going to keep adjusting this a little bit to get my first shot set the way that I want it. Maybe something like that. And if we want to go in any closer, we can use the rail to do that. And then adjust the camera again. So I'm going to go with that on this next shot right there. We do need to expand our rails, so it has 2 points on it. I need to select that point right there, and now we can use the handles to bring that out. I'm probably going to just jump down here on location on the X value and set that to 600 because I know that's the distance I want. This is center at 0. This is -300, and this is +300. So those rails are about 600 in length. And then just to give this a little more dynamics in the depth of this, I'm going to bend the rails just slightly. Let me zoom out here so we can see this. This handle right here, I'm going to select it, and then you'll see how this is just going to bend the rails. And then I'll jump over to the other point right there and do the same thing. So that'll just give us a little bit of bend on this, adding just a little more dynamics to this move. Now that all of that is set up, we'll animate the camera moving from point A to point B. And to do that, that will be on the rail. And we're going to use this current position on rail to animate it. So we can set up that animation first. We want to be right there, let's say 119. I'm going to set the first keyframe for that current position. Click it. That gets added into the sequencer. So we'll do another 5 seconds on this, jump to maybe 270 right there, and bring this all the way over to 1 and set that keyframe. Of course, you can see that we're going to need to adjust the camera. So we'll select it. And I should have done this earlier. I didn't set the keyframe for that. So let's jump back to this first keyframe. Make sure we're right there at 119. And so on rotation, we'll need to set that keyframe. Then we can jump back to 270 and position up our camera. And on the yaw, we can swing that back around. And if we need to adjust the pitch any, I think that'll work. So we'll end right there, and I'm going to set that keyframe now. And so now our animation should be good. I don't want to ease from the beginning of this shot, so I'm going to go ahead. I'll need to do this on both of these beginning keyframes. Let me find both of them. So this one right here, let's see, we're going to have to open that up to actually get to those keyframes. That one right there, I'll select it and move on up till I get to the other one. That should be good. I'm going to set both of those hopefully to linear. I want to set both of those to linear. Let me check both of them. Okay. And so we'll start at a pretty constant velocity, then ease into those stops on that animation. So everything should be set now. To see everything from the camera cuts track, let's select it. So that way, when we're on the first camera, we'll be viewing it. And then when it cuts, we'll cut to the second camera. So let's select that. Now our view is on that. Let's jump back to, and that's not going to render in there in just a moment. So when we play through, we shouldn't see that. I'm going to slide back here to our first camera shot. And if we want to get a little more value out of that anisotropy, we can add some more lighting in here. I'm going to go to my lights here, and I'm just going to use a point light. That's been added in, and then I'll just bring that out front. And you can see immediately the effect that point light is having on our scene. And so I'm just going to slide one in, and let me jump out of the camera cuts track right there, and we'll move in and take a look at this and kind of get an idea. Get down here more at the angle of where this first camera is, and we can slide that over. We can add a couple of these in so that we get more use out of that. And I'll just duplicate that point light, select it, and Control D, and then we can slide that one over here. And so you can add in some more lighting, however you want that. Let's go take a look at that now. And those lights are beginning to affect that anisotropy property. And even from this high angle, we're seeing that really well. I'm going to make a few changes to this to help improve the look a little bit. I'm going to change some of the materials on the text. I'm going to select that right there and drop down. I want to change the material on the extrude. I'm going to select the white right there. It's just kind of getting lost in there with that blue that matches the background. And we'll change that out to white. Do that on the other also. I also made a change on the material for this number 5 right here. I'll go take a look at that. The front-facing material right there, I'm going to double-click on it. Open that up. And on the channels here, I adjusted the roughness on this. I think I had it set a little bit lower, maybe 0.5. And the lighting there was just starting to blow that out. So to bring that back to where I can see that a little bit better, I set this to 0.9. Close that material out. And then keep in mind that any of the direct lighting that is in the scene is going to create these flares, these reflections here. On the point lights that I added in, I continued to adjust them moving through the animation. And then I also adjusted the main direct light up here on the directional light and selected it, and then just went into the position and rotation and continued to adjust that till I got the look that I was wanting. So I'm going to jump back to the beginning of the timeline. We'll take a look at that. And I like that look a lot better. I hope this has been helpful. And for more on motion media design, hit the like and subscribe button and check out my other tutorials.